Hola, bienvenidos a The Language Coach. En el programa de hoy les tenemos una invitada muy especial, Arlene Miller, conocida como The Grammar Diva. The Grammar Diva, la diva de la gramática. Ha escrito unos libros muy importantes de gramática en inglés, The Best Little Grammar Book Ever, ¿no? El mejor pequeño libro de gramática por los tiempos, y también The 50 Shades of Grammar, las 50 sombras de la gramática, y To Comma or Not to Comma, ¿no? Ponerle coma o no ponerle coma, un libro de puntuación. Con ustedes, Arlene Miller, The Grammar Diva.
Arlene, pleasure having you here in the show with the language coach. Let me introduce Arlene Miller. Or Arlene, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
I am Arlene Miller, also known as the Grammar Diva. I gave myself that name. I have followed a path to writing grammar books probably my whole life. I used to write songs and poetry, and then I worked on newspapers for a while. Then I worked as a technical writer, a freelance editor, a technical editor. Then I got a teaching credential when I was quite a bit older and taught 7th grade English. And between the mistakes people made when I was editing and the mistakes I encountered while I was teaching, I said, I think I'm going to write a grammar book with all the most common problems. And I outlined it right away. It sat on my desk because I was teaching. And finally, I wrote it and published it in 2010. And I thought, of course, it would be my only grammar book, because how many grammar books can you write? So far, it's about 12.
Oh my God. Arlene, where did you study? And tell us a little bit about Arlene, the early years kind of thing.
I was mostly into performing arts. You know, I danced from when I was 6, and I played piano, junior high and high school. My mother sent me to drama lessons because I was so shy. And then I went to college, and I didn't do any, I was in the dance club, but I didn't really do very much. I majored in publications, which at the time was print media, and English. And I did it because I was so interested in music that I wanted to write for Billboard Music Magazine. I think that was kind of the impetus, and I used to write song lyrics. Mm-hmm. And I never did get to do that, although I still wish that I had. I went to college in Boston, and then I worked at various things. And then much later on, after I had kids that were teenagers or older, I got a master's, which I'd always wanted. I got a master's in humanities with a focus on music history, because I still was into music. I went back to dance, and I did tap dance. I taught that for a while. I did some performing. And then I needed a job even after that. And I at the same time as getting my master's in music, I got a teaching credential because I needed a job. So I taught for 11 years, during which I started writing books. And now I can't find any place to dance here in Florida. So, and I've got a music keyboard in my office, which I haven't touched in a while.
Okay. It's really interesting. I mean, so basically you're the Grammar Diva. It's a name you basically gave yourself. I am the language coach, which, for lack of a better word, I did exactly the same. I just gave myself that name. I mean, I've been working in language coaching for years, and I just decided. And I am a music major as well, and I worked in music for at least 10 years. I had a rock band, a recording studio. We did music for documentaries and television, but although we got a lot of projects, it never lifted in such a way that it became a full-time job. So I needed a side job as well. I started teaching English, And lo and behold, now I have a language coaching company that has been going on for 20 years. I have my own YouTube channel, Instagram, written a couple of books, not as successful as yours, and they're more targeted towards Spanish speakers learning English. But who knows? But I'm really pleased to have you here on the Language Coach show, for lack of a better word. Tell us a little bit about the whole. Okay, so you already said grammar. You started noticing how people just needed help with grammar. And there's something, I don't know if you knew about this, but in Spanish, there's a thing called La Real Academia de la Lengua, which is basically the Royal Academy, you know, like the French have.
And every language except English has.
All right, exactly. So let's go deep into that, because I'm always very curious. And when I discovered your books, I was like, man, this is great, because there are some of those standards, but we're at a loss here. So I imagine you were at a loss as well when you started.
It's an uphill battle because people who speak the language, many of them don't care. Find that people whose second or third language is English do much better with grammar. And yeah, there's the problem of there are no rules, there's standards. And there are two schools of grammar thought. There are the descriptionists and the prescriptionists, the hawks and the doves. The prescriptionists, sort of like me, say there are rules and you should follow them, because why not? And the descriptionists say more like, well, if enough people start to use something, it becomes a standard, and language evolves and grammar evolves. And I'm kind of moving a little towards that, but I'm pretty stuck to those rules, because I don't, why not?
Okay. And where did you get those rules? I mean, although you knew them from school, but is there a place where you can say, oh, this is a rule, I can refer to this book for these rules, or how does it go?
Mine goes a certain way that many other people's may not, because I did a lot of copy editing, and I am not a style guide expert. I know there's the Chicago and there's the AP and there's the MLA, and I'm not an expert in any of those. I assume in many cases they agree, and I probably am more the Chicago manual than any of the others. And of course, like everyone else, I didn't remember the grammar I learned in elementary school or junior high.
Mm-hmm.
I was always good in grammar, but I didn't really remember things. And a lot of what this is I was really good in Latin. I did 4 years of Latin. I did Latin all the way through high school. I took the Latin college boards because it was grammar based and you didn't have to speak it. I could not learn French because it was conversational, and for some reason my mind does not work that way. When I started teaching English, I taught 7th grade English, and I have to admit that I learned most everything that's in my books from the 7th grade grammar book.
Okay. That's awesome.
There's an old book, I don't know how I got it. It's called the Greg Manual, and I really like that one. I don't care for the Chicago Manual. Every time I look something up, it's not in there, because it really doesn't specialize in grammar so much.
Yeah, it's more like, this William Strunk, The Elements of Style. Is that something?
Yeah. I had never read Strunk and White's Elements of Style until several years ago when I got a used copy at the library book sale.
Okay.
And I read it. It was after I had done at least my first book, which was similar to it. And I found that they were very similar, except mine is not as boring. It's not as dry. It's friendlier.
Absolutely. Why do you think people find grammar dry? I don't want to sound like this nerd, but it's so exciting.
I know. And I know people who do find it interesting. Those are the people I hang around with. I don't know. I think people are averse to rules. I don't know. They think it's memorization, it's boring, it's like math.
Do you find one of the problems we have in Latin America, and I don't know if this is happening in the US, is that people, and now of course with text messages, and people don't know how to write.
No.
I mean, professionals. This is something, thankfully, or I don't know. What do you think of software like Grammarly, stuff like that? Is that going to actually hinder people from progressing, or actually it's going to help us read better emails at least?
Grammarly and such tools?
Yeah.
I have not used Grammarly, but I have heard from people that it's decent. It's not going to replace a human editor. But at least if people are interested enough and care enough to run their writing by Grammarly, they've taken a step forward.
Absolutely. I do have the pro version. It's decent. It questions a lot of stuff. Of course, being artificial intelligence, it ends up going to the same places, and once you use it a lot, you realize, oh, you're correcting this all the time, and this is not the way I want to sound. You're affecting my voice.
Right.
So that's something. Yeah. Good. So it's the same in the US. People don't know how to write.
Oh, it's probably worse. I don't know, but people don't know how to write. People don't know how to talk. I listen to the news and I hear the same mistakes. These are Ivy League educated people. And, they're still not with the I and the me, and they don't know, and it's just horrifying. It's
challenging. And one of the biggest challenges for our students here is when they realize that native English speakers make mistakes. For them, because it's a second language and it's their objective, they think, oh, everyone in the US and everyone in England, they speak perfect English. And
oh no. Maybe in England, but no. Oh no. Many people speak horrible. They just certain things. Some people just never learned the I and the me, the irregular verb, past tenses. I have friends still saying have went, and it drives me out of my mind. And have ate, and have have swam.
Yeah, we was going.
And and then a lot of people, they speak slang, they speak dialects, and that's fine. But if you're writing, I guess the most important thing about writing is your reader to understand it easily. And I mean, you can make some mistakes and the reader can still understand it. But a lot of people do actually write so that you can't understand it well. It can be very misleading, and it takes some thought to write so that somebody can understand it and you don't say something that's vague or ambiguous.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your books. Tell us maybe some chronology, but at the same time with anecdotes, and then I want to focus on the 50 the shades, the 50.
Quite simple, actually. Okay, I do have a story about that book, though, if I can remember it. Well, the first book, I kind of told you how that came about. I said I'm going to put a book together that just covers the major points, and I did that. And it was just the era where self-publishing was really coming into its own. And I started to look for a publisher in those big books, and there were so many publishers, I didn't know what to do. And I said, it'll take me 3 years to get this book out, even if I found a publisher. I think I'll just try to self-publish. So that led me on the journey of learning about self-publishing. And I did it, and I got the book out, and it did pretty well. I don't remember if I was surprised, but it really did pretty well. And I wasn't going to write another book. And a Facebook friend of mine who was a writer said she had a dream that I wrote a book called Correct Me If I'm Wrong. So I said, I must do that. So my second book was Correct Me If I'm Wrong, which was pretty much the same content as my first book, which is the best little grammar book ever, which is kind of my brand. But it was presented alphabetically. It was presented a little differently and had some other features in it. And I don't even remember. Well, I have a couple of things that are just ebooks. I had a student teacher when I taught, and she said, your grammar lessons are really good. You should put them in a book. So I made it's an ebook. It has sold well on a teacher site. It doesn't teach grammar, but it has ideas of how to present it. It's got some fun things in it, because I used to do parts of speech Jeopardy with my kids, and some things that were tried to make grammar fun, because I taught a lot more grammar than the administration would have liked, I'm sure. Then I said, I think I should do a workbook. People say workbooks sell well. Boy, am I glad I did that workbook, because I did that in 2015. And that, if it weren't for that workbook, I might be living in a box on the river.
Okay.
That has done probably 90% of my sales. And then I did a smaller workbook, and I took that first book and I made a second edition of it. I changed some of it. And then I put a few books together, bound. I did a book on confused words. Does your flamingo flamenco?
Yeah.
And then I did I did a punctuation book, to comma or not to comma. That one did pretty well too. That's a good one. So I would say my first book and the big workbook and the comma book have done the best. And then there's the 50 Shades, which actually is only a book of 50 of my blog posts.
Okay.
That's what it is. I have done a weekly blog since the beginning of 2013. So I'm running out of ideas. I do welcome guest posts. But every weekend, every Friday or Saturday it comes out, I do a blog. So at one point, this is around 2015 also, I put 50 of them together in the 50 Shades book, which won an award with my publishing group, but didn't sell very well. I mean, I could do a few more of those. I have so many blog posts, I could do a few more of those books. And several months ago, and when I was doing the 50 Shades book, I was very careful. I said, is this going to be copyright infringement? If I call it 50 Shades of Grammar. And I looked on Amazon, and there were 50 Shades of Chicken and 50 Shades of everything. So I said, well, it must be okay. And I think I checked with an attorney. So I never heard anything until, I guess it was 2021 or 2022. I get this letter, this email from Amazon saying, we have received a complaint of trademark infringement, I think it was, and we've taken your book down. And I looked, and they had taken it down, but they left up all the other ones. And they had some company in London that had, I think they were media lawyers, had filed the complaint, I guess. And I wrote back to Amazon and say I had checked this out, and there's a lot of other books with this name, and I gave a list, and then they took all of them down.
Oh my God, okay.
And I did a little research online, and it wasn't even the book 50 Shades of Grey that complained. It was some company called 50 Shades that sold, I don't know, soaps and things. And everything was taken down except somebody smart enough to call it, I don't know, they changed the wording around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I wasn't going to fight it because it doesn't sell that well. I didn't really care that much, unless they were going to take down all my other books that had the title in a list of books that I'd done, but nobody really cared. A few weeks later, I got an apology from Amazon and said the complaint was withdrawn and your book goes back up. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. I think the title is hilarious. And
the title was good, but it didn't take off. But it's marketing.
Who are your main? Do you know who are the people that buy your books?
There's no way to know. Everybody says if you're an author, know your audience. How? I know that a lot of colleges have picked up the book, and I only know because some of them, not recently, but a long time ago, they would contact me, even though, and I would direct them to where to get the book. And then I can see when I check my sales on Ingram, the book wholesaler, I can see when I get a bulk sale, and I figure it's probably a school. But who buys them on Amazon? It seems to be a variety of, who knows. Some people buy them for their kids in school to help them along. I assume maybe some homeschoolers. And nobody will tell you. I mean, you can't find out from Amazon who's buying your books. You can't find out from Ingram. Even if it's a bulk sale, they can't tell you who bought the books.
Well, I would have thought it would have been possible, but no.
No, I have tried, and I've talked to people in my publishing group, and they said no, they can't.
So you don't know if it's college students or if it's high school students or if it's grown-ups?
I think it's both, and I know that colleges have bought it. That I know. So I've gotten some, emails. And then I know there's a website called World Catalog that has all the books in the libraries around the world, and you can look and see what libraries your book is in, and it's wound up in weird places like Australia and New Zealand.
Okay. Have you ever gotten into a controversy with any, I don't know, for lack of a better word, Ivy Leaguer or top-notch authority from a university, basically arguing against some of your books or some of the ideas in your books?
I can't really think of any. I can think of one, but I don't think he was an Ivy Leaguer. This was at the beginning. Actually, my second book, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, the blurb on the back was written by a linguist who was a professor in New York, and she loved the book. She liked my work, so I felt good about that. I did at the beginning, it was my first book, maybe it was the workbook. I don't exactly remember how it happened. I got a bad review on Amazon. I'm not sure if he commented on a blog post or anything else, but I saw this review, and he said I did not know how to use the past perfect tense.
Okay. And
he wrote this long thing, and I looked up his other reviews, and he had written to many, 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 many grammar authors saying the same thing. You don't know how to use the past perfect tense. And he started emailing me and asked me to prove that I knew how to use the past perfect tense. And he just went on and on about this professor told him he was the only person who knew how to use the past perfect tense. And finally he let up or something. Maybe I blocked him. But I don't quite get what was going on with the past perfect tense, because I think I know how to use the past perfect tense. I don't know.
So we can call this person the past perfect stalker?
Yeah, it was very odd. I think he actually maybe found one book where he thought they used it correctly, but he really harped on that past perfect tense, which is really not that significant in grammar. Hardly anybody uses it or knows how or cares.
It's complex. It's complex. Even teaching it to students, you know, like we tell them, listen, this is the grammar, these are the tenses, these are the name that correspond to the tenses. But at the end of the day, what we want you as learners of English and as eventual users of the language, which you don't need to graduate, you just need to just jump into the pool and start swimming and start using it. You know, that's the only way you learn a second or a third language. But we tell them, listen, as teachers, we have a situation where we categorize things. You know, this is the present perfect, this is the past perfect, this is the present continuous, this is the past simple, this and that. But we tell students, listen, it's not like there's going to be a moment where, oh, the moon is full, the night is like this. It's a perfect moment for the present perfect. You know, language just comes out. And as users, we want people to eventually make that connection where, as a speaker, you're automatic about it. You don't have to think about it, but there are reference books that you can use. So you can construct literally your structures, so you can structure the language well and get it together. So it's more polite, it's more, it's a cleaner language coming out and clearer at the end of the day. So books about grammar, unfortunately, for some reason, tend to maintain speakers or learners within that framework, or, oh, I need to know the rules. So we love using your books, and I'm going to recommend your books to all of the language coaches audience, because they are really, really neat. You get it, everything. I mean, everything is
Thank you.
Pretty well explained, and you have the exercises there. So it's something that helps people. You know, when you read the concept, you see the examples, you have the exercises, and you verify, is this correct or not correct? And lo and behold, because of the internet, you can eventually, they can contact you and eventually ask you, hey, Grammar Diva, help. You know?
And they do. I get a lot of grammar questions. I'm always happy to answer them.
Awesome. And I'll just write your information on the description, both in the YouTube and the podcast, so people can contact you and ask you about stuff. One never knows. Maybe a grammar book for Spanish speakers will eventually come out.
You know that I speak one language really well, but I don't speak any others. And I have a question for you about, because this isn't something that's in my book, even though my credential program said I was qualified to teach ESL. I'm really not. How do you deal with the prepositions? They are so crazy. In and on and at. I don't know how anyone can learn what goes with what. I just don't. I guess you just have to immerse yourself in the language.
It's really strange. So we're talking about prepositions in English, aren't we? How do we deal about? Yeah, how do we deal with?
They're crazy.
Yeah, it is definitely crazy. It is one of those moments where you go like, oh, it's the language. You just have to take it at face value. It's what it is. There are some of the descriptions that prepositions give that are easy to teach. Examples. Time. You know, it's the class is at 7 a.m. In September, on Monday, September 7 or September the 7th. Those are kind of easy. Prepositions of location are also easy. You know, it's on the table, under the table, between. Those are but then the others. Are you in the hospital, or is it at the hospital? Where are you right now? Oh, I'm in class, or I'm at class, or those things that's when it becomes a little bit awkward, difficult, and that's when we start as teachers to basically go, oh no, it's what it is. It's the language.
And the phrasal verbs with like put up and put out, fire up, they're just.
I was gonna say that phrasal verbs. When you mentioned prepositions, I was gonna say, Arlene, it's not prepositions, it's phrasal verbs.
Phrasal verbs, yeah.
That's what kills everyone, because everyone kind of learns the verbs and learns the three columns, with the ones that are regular and the ones that are irregular, and they can go with write, wrote, written, eat, ate, eaten, and they just can, learn that by heart and eventually use it. But then you start coming out with phrasal verbs and they're like, teacher, but now we have, I don't know how many more verbs. Are these verbs because they do imply an action, but phrasal verbs go even more, it's kind of like, it is an action, but it's kind of like a story behind it with phrasal verbs. I coach my coaches to start teaching phrasal verbs from the beginning, to think of them as colors and teach those colors from the get-go so students start knowing about them and using them, because that makes a huge difference. One of the ways phrasal verbs are taught here, it's when you reach a B1 level, which is a pre-intermediate level in the language. And I think it's 2 or 3 years of learning a language to start learning phrasal verbs. I don't think it's fair for the student. I think students should learn that from the beginning, because it's part of the language and people use them. Half of the battle is there.
And since it's the most difficult thing, they should start with that.
Absolutely.
More time. Get more time.
Absolutely. No, and phrasal verbs, they have different meanings as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, put on.
Put on, put up, put up with, put out. Okay, yeah.
Turn in, turn out.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Excellent. All right, Miss Arlene, I hope this is not, they're telling me breakfast is ready. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're doing, actually, I'm not in my city right now. We're visiting Colombia's second city because my wife's grandmother is having her 96th birthday today. So it's awesome. So we're gonna have brunch and then head to where she stays.
So where are you?
I'm in Medellin.
I thought so, because I have a friend in California whose wife is Colombian, and for a while they were living in Medellin for a while.
Okay.
Off and on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm originally from Bogota, the capital city. I live there. Cold city up in the mountains, and I come here to Medellin and it's even colder. So I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna get my money back, my refund. But so yeah, we're gonna have a big brunch before going. So they're telling me, Robert, it's ready. So I hope this is not the last time we meet, Arlene. Most probably, I'm gonna get a lot of questions from my students and from my audience, and I'll just send them your way. And I hope people get your books. But I definitely recommend your books. Everyone, you should get the best grammar workbook ever. I love that book. I bought it, I think, 5 years ago, as I was waiting for a student. I was drinking coffee and I was checking on Amazon, and then that's when I discovered it.
So you just kind of found it randomly on Amazon?
Yeah, I did. And then, of course, once I purchased it, it just started showing up, and then, okay, I bought the other one, and then, of course, I just started, I subscribed to your blog, read the articles, and for some odd reason, 2 weeks ago, I read the blog post on everyone, anyone, which is a very common mistake. Even teachers make that mistake.
Yeah.
And then I saw the last part about the being a guest in the blog, and that's when I wrote to you, and here we are. So
well, thank you. I'm glad you found the book. That book the past few days was number 1 in the adult education and continuing education category. I was very, very proud. It said Amazon bestseller, number 1.
I'm so glad to hear that. No, that's great. That's great. So, Ms. Arlene, the Grammar Diva, it's a pleasure having you on the show with the language coach.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for promoting me, and thank you for having me on. It's been great meeting you.
I'll let you know. I'm just going to stop recording now.
Muchas gracias por estar con The Language Coach en este programa tan especial con Arlene Miller, The Grammar Diva. Ok, fue fenomenal, pero recuerden que tenemos más videos de The Language Coach que les pueden servir para mejorar en todos los aspectos que signifiquen mejorar en inglés, gramática, pronunciación o en el aprendizaje de idiomas. Aquí en The Language Coach. Los esperamos con más videos.